Have you ever wondered what you would do if your life took a drastic and unexpected turn? Imagine being torn from your home, from everything familiar, and forced to serve a foreign king in a distant land. And not only that, but being tempted, day after day, to leave behind your deepest convictions, your faith, your identity. This is the powerful story of a young man who, in the face of overwhelming pressure from a vast and dominant empire, chose to stand firm. This is the story of Daniel, the young man who conquered Babylon without lifting a single sword. The year was 605 BC. A period of instability and conflict marked the region. In the midst of this panorama, Nebuchadnezzar, the imposing king of Babylon, launched a decisive invasion of Jerusalem. After the victory, and as part of his most valuable plunder, Nebuchadnezzar not only took material treasures, but also the most promising of the Israelite youth. He sought brilliant minds, blameless bodies, and noble hearts, future leaders he could mold to his will. It was a subtle but powerful strategy to force them to forget who they were and whom they served. The food offered to the young men was undoubtedly delicious, a feast worthy of royalty. However, it was also consecrated to the pagan gods of Babylon, and consuming it would imply ritual and spiritual contamination for a pious Jew. Daniel faced a crucial crossroads. Should he yield to comfort and royal command, or remain faithful to his principles? But Daniel, with a wisdom beyond his years, understood a fundamental truth. They can change your name, even your surroundings, but they can never take away your conviction. The monarch examined them closely, asking questions and testing their knowledge, and the result astonished the powerful king. Nor was he a loud-mouthed prophet, standing in public squares to denounce and shout to the masses. Daniel was, quite simply, a young man faithful in small matters, in everyday decisions, in seemingly small commitments. And that unwavering faithfulness was what made him great before God and men. Daniel and his friends proved to be 10 times wiser and more insightful than all the magicians, sorcerers, and astrologers in the entire kingdom. He approached the chief of officials, risking his position and perhaps his life, and respectfully asked that he and his friends be allowed to consume only vegetables and water for 10 days. Because the truth is this: when God is truly with you, you don't need to fit into the world's mold. What you need is to be faithful to Him. That faithfulness is what allows you to excel, not by your own strength, but by the power that works through you. It was a humble request, but one that put divine providence to the test. Even the smallest ones. If we choose obedience over comfort and integrity over conformity, He will take care of everything else. He will open doors, give you wisdom, prosper you, and use you in ways you could never have imagined. And what was the outcome? God, in His infinite faithfulness, honored His unwavering obedience. Among these select young men were a boy named Daniel and his 3 loyal friends, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. They would not be common prisoners, but students. Their purpose was to be meticulously trained in the intricate culture, sophisticated language, and deep-rooted Chaldean customs. This exile was not just a change of location. It was the beginning of a rigorous testing phase, a profound challenge in a completely unknown and foreign land. They were uprooted and transported to the opulence and luxury of the royal palace in Babylon. There, they would not be common prisoners, but students. Names that echoed the pagan gods of the empire. Far from looking weak or malnourished, Daniel and his friends exhibited health and physical appearance noticeably superior to that of all the other young men who had enjoyed sumptuous royal banquet. God not only blessed their bodies. As a reward for their loyalty, He granted them extraordinary wisdom, deep understanding, and vast knowledge that far surpassed that of their contemporaries. Daniel was also given an exceptional gift, the ability to interpret dreams and visions, a divine gift that would elevate him even further in the Babylonian court. What for others was mere training, for Daniel and his friends, what began as a test of faith and character became a supernatural platform for the unfolding of God's glorious purpose. Their purpose was to be meticulously trained in the intricate culture, sophisticated language, and deeply rooted customs of the country. This exile was not just a change of location. It was the beginning of a rigorous period of testing, a profound challenge in a completely unknown and foreign land. To ensure their assimilation and loyalty, the chief eunuch in charge of their education gave them new Babylonian names. Daniel was renamed Belteshazzar in honor of Babylon's chief deity. Ananias, meaning God is merciful, became Mishael, whose name meant who is like God, was now Mishael. And Azariah, the Lord helps, became Abednego, servant of Nego. With a new language to learn, a radically different culture to adopt, and, most significantly, new names that sought to erase their heritage, everything seemed meticulously designed to strip them of their Hebrew identity. The next great test came at the king's table. With admirable.com, Daniel made a decision that seemed simple, but one that demanded immense faith. They were uprooted and transported to the opulence and luxury of the royal palace in Babylon. At the end of this stipulated 10 days, the transformation was astonishing. After 3 full years of intense preparation, the culminating moment arrived. The young men were brought before King Nebuchadnezzar himself for evaluation. in a place where everything was different from what they knew, in a culture that sought to engulf them. They not only survived, but shone with an unmistakable light. The story of Daniel teaches us an invaluable lesson. He wasn't a warrior on the battlefield, wielding a sword and conquering kingdoms by force. His life is a powerful reminder that no matter where we find ourselves, or how far removed God seems from our reality, if we choose to honor him with our decisions. It was the second year of Nebuchadnezzar's reign, a period of consolidation and expansion for the vast Babylonian Empire. One night, the king awoke, terrified, troubled by a vivid and terrifying dream. Tell the dream to your servants, and we will give you the interpretation. But Nebuchadnezzar, perhaps out of mistrust, or the very nature of his anguish, launched a demand that paralyzed those present. This matter has escaped me. If you do not tell me the dream and its interpretation, you will be cut to pieces, and your houses will be turned into heaps of rubble. And in the midst of that death sentence, the order also reached Daniel and his friends. Not only that, he added a tempting carrot. But if you tell me the dream, Daniel, with his characteristic wisdom and prudence, asked Arioch, why is this decree of the king so urgent? Arioch explained the desperate situation. The mystery was revealed to him in a night vision. The God Daniel served, the God of Israel, had heard his prayers. Filled with gratitude and wonder, Daniel blessed the God of heaven with a beautiful song of praise. Together, they engaged in fervent prayer, asking for the mercy of the God of heaven to reveal this mystery to them, so that they would not perish with the other wise men of Babylon. And its interpretation, you will receive from me gifts, rewards, and great honor. Trusting in the power of his God, he went before the king and asked for a time limit, promising that he would reveal the dream and its interpretation. Incredible audacity, isn't it? A young exile, amidst the wrath of an absolute monarch, asks for time to do the impossible. Daniel knew that his help would not come from magic, but from a much higher source. The problem was that, although the dream shook him to his core, he couldn't remember it. Not an image, not a word, only the persistent anguish. The Babylonian wise men, with all their esoteric knowledge, were powerless. Daniel humbly, and without taking any credit for himself, replied, the secret that the king has asked for, neither wise men, nor astrologers, nor magicians, nor diviners can explain to the king. But there is a God in heaven who reveals secrets, and he has made known to King Nebuchadnezzar what will happen in the last days. Honestly, yet fearfully, they replied. There is no one on earth who can declare the king's matter. He gave all the credit to God, establishing from the beginning that the wisdom he possessed was not his own, but from a divine source. Moreover, no king, no matter how great and powerful, has ever asked such a thing of any magician, astrologer, or Chaldean. You, O king, were looking, and behold, a great image. This image, which was very large and whose brilliance was very excellent, stood before you, and its appearance was terrible. They recognized that only the gods, who did not dwell with mortals, could reveal such a secret. Take me to the king, and I will give him the interpretation. Arioch, relieved, immediately took Daniel to Nebuchadnezzar. It will break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms, and it will stand forever. Daniel's precision and the depth of the revelation left no room for doubt. The king, the all-powerful monarch of Babylon, bowed before Daniel and ordered that offerings and incense be offered to him. The stone cut without human hands represents the kingdom of God, a divine kingdom that does not arise from human will, but from heavenly power. And Lord of kings, and the revealer of mysteries, for you were able to reveal this mystery. For a moment, Nebuchadnezzar's pride bowed before the power of Daniel's God. This kingdom will crush and replace all earthly empires, and will endure for eternity, which would be strong and fragile at the same time, a mixture of incompatible elements with kingdoms that would try to unite but would not stick. Obsessed with deciphering its meaning, he summoned all the wise men of his kingdom, the magicians, the astrologers, the sorcerers, and the Chaldean, and it struck the image on its feet of iron and clay and broke them in pieces. Daniel also interceded for his friends, and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were placed in charge of the affairs of the province of Babylon, while Daniel remained at the king's court. Then the iron, the clay, the bronze, the silver, and the gold were broken into pieces together. Human kingdoms rise and fall, but the kingdom of God is eternal and unshakable. And that same God, who revealed the future to a pagan king through a faithful young man, continues to reveal himself today to those who seek him. And it became like chaff from the summer threshing floors. The wind carried them away, so that no trace of them was found. But the stone that struck the image became a great mountain and filled the whole earth. I have had a dream, he declared to them, and my spirit is troubled because I want to know its meaning. The wise men, accustomed to interpreting the king's visions, responded confidently, "Oh, king, live forever." The wise men, in a state of panic, implored once more, "Let the king tell his servants the dream, and we will give him the interpretation." But the king, adamant, told them, "I know you are stalling, for you see that the matter has eluded me. If you do not tell me the dream, your sentence is one. You have prepared lying and wicked words to tell me, hoping that the situation will change. Therefore, tell me the dream, and I will know that you can also give me its interpretation. It was a no-win situation. No human, no matter how wise, could divine the king's dream. The king's fury was terrible. Filled with indignation, he ordered the execution of all the wise men of Babylon. When Arioch, the captain of the royal guard, went out to execute the wise men, he found Daniel. Without hesitation, Daniel did not panic. After obtaining the king's permission, Daniel returned home and immediately shared the grave situation with his friends, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. And in the middle of the night, while Daniel slept, the answer came. Blessed be the name of God forever and ever. For his are power and wisdom. He changes times and seasons. He removes kings and sets them up. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to the discerning. He reveals deep and hidden things. He knows what is in darkness, and light dwells with him. I give thanks and praise to you, O God of my fathers, for you have given me wisdom and power. And now you have made known to me what we asked of you. For you have made known to us the matter of the king. With divine revelation in his heart, Daniel quickly went to Arioch and said, "Do not kill the wise men of Babylon." The king asked Daniel, "Are you able to make known to me the dream I have seen and its interpretation?" Daniel did not seek glory for himself. Then Daniel began to describe the king's dream with astonishing precision. And then Daniel proceeded to describe each part of the statue, revealing its profound meaning. The head of pure gold represented Nebuchadnezzar and his glorious Babylonian empire, the first and most powerful of the world's monarchs. The chest and arms of silver symbolized a second kingdom that would arise after Babylon, an empire of lesser splendor, but still powerful. The belly and thighs of bronze indicated a third kingdom, which would rule the entire earth, an empire of bronze. The legs of iron represented a fourth kingdom, strong as iron, that would break and shatter all the previous ones. The feet, part iron and part baked clay, they symbolized the division of this fourth kingdom, but the dream didn't end there. Daniel continued, "You were watching until a stone was cut out without hands, and the interpretation of this last part was the most striking. In the days of these kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom that will never be destroyed, nor will it be left to another people." Upon hearing the dream and its astonishing interpretation, Nebuchadnezzar was completely full of admiration. The king exclaimed, "Surely your God is God of gods," and as a reward, the king promoted Daniel, gave him many great gifts, and made him governor over the entire province of Babylon and chief of all the wise men. The story of Daniel 2 shows us that there is a God in heaven who is in control of history. After the astonishing revelation of the dream of the statue where Daniel explained to Nebuchadnezzar that his kingdom was only the head of gold, and that other MPAs would follow the king's mind, seemed to react with a mixture of gratitude and a renewed and dangerous pride. This colossal figure was not erected in secret, but on the plain of Dura in the province of Babylon. A place visible to thousands, it was a public declaration of his power and, implicitly, of his own deification. Perhaps disturbed by the idea that his empire would come to an end, or simply wanting to assert his absolute power and divinity, Nebuchadnezzar made a monumental decision. He had an enormous statue of pure gold built, 60 cubits high and 6 cubits wide. In his fiery anger, he ordered Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego to be brought to him. Then the king issued a decree that resonated throughout the empire. Nebuchadnezzar, in his arrogance, believed that no power, not even that of a god, could surpass his own. "Is it true, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that you do not serve my gods or worship the golden image I have set up?" he asked. "Now then, if you are willing, when you hear the sound of the trumpet, flute, lyre, harp, psaltery, bagpipe," they showed no fear, no doubt, no excuses. With astonishing calm and unshakable conviction, they declared to the king. His face was disfigured. Nebuchadnezzar, who was watching the scene, stood up quickly in terror and asked his advisors, "Did we not throw 3 men bound into the fire?" They replied, "Certainly, O king." He ordered the furnace to be heated 7 times hotter than usual, to the point where the flames were so intense that the bravest soldiers who threw them into the fire died from the extreme heat. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, bound in their tunics, cloaks, hats, and other clothing, were thrown directly into the heart of the blazing furnace. And Abednego shall be cut to pieces, and their houses shall be turned into heaps of rubble. For there is no God like this who can deliver. It reminds us that no matter how fiery life's trials are, if we are faithful, God is with us. He doesn't always deliver us from the furnace, but he is always in the furnace with us. Ultimately, Nebuchadnezzar prospered Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the province of Babylon. And all kinds of music, "You will fall down and worship the image I have made." It was a faith that said, whether we live or die, whether you save us or not, our loyalty is to our God and to him alone. And the appearance of the fourth is like the Son of God. The 3 young men were unharmed, walking through the flames, and beside them was a heavenly figure, a divine being. It was an unmistakable manifestation of God's power and presence. We will not bend. It was a faith that transcended circumstance, a fidelity stronger than the fear of death. And the three young men emerged from the midst of the fire unharmed. The satraps, prefects, governors, and the king's advisors gathered to see them. They noted that the fire had had no power over their bodies, that not a single hair on their heads had been burned. Their clothes were not scorched, and they didn't even smell of smoke. If so, our God, whom we serve, is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us from your hand, O king. He exclaimed, Blessed be the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who sent his angel and rescued his servants who trusted in him. They disobeyed the king's command and gave up their bodies rather than serve or worship any god but their own God. But if you do not worship it, you will immediately be thrown into the midst of a burning fiery furnace, and what God will be there to deliver you from my hands? He summoned all the satraps, prefects, governors, counselors, treasurers, judges, magistrates, and all the dignitaries of the provinces for the dedication of the statue. As the music played, thousands of people knelt, bowing their faces toward the imposing golden statue, fulfilling the king's command out of fear or true worship. They were Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, Daniel's friends. Their defiant stance did not go unnoticed. Some Chaldeans, filled with envy and perhaps seeking royal favor, approached the king and accused the young Jews. They were not compromising their faith. It was already decided. And then the second part, filled with powerful faith. They knew their God could deliver them. But the third part is even deeper and often forgotten. And if not, be it known to you, O king, that we will not serve your gods, nor will we worship the golden image that you have set up. O king, live forever. They said, There are some Jews whom you have appointed over the affairs of the province of Babylon, Meshach and Abednego. These men, O king, have not heeded your decree. They do not worship your gods, nor do they worship the golden image you have set up. The order was clear and terrifying. When you hear the sound of the trumpet, flute, lyre, harp, psaltery, bagpipe, and all kinds of musical instruments, you will fall down and worship the golden image that King Nebuchadnezzar has set up. And the consequence for anyone who disobeyed was brutal, instantaneous. Anyone who does not fall down and worship will immediately be thrown into a blazing fiery furnace. It was a test of total loyalty, a demand for blind obedience. The dedication ceremony was an impressive spectacle. Under the Babylonian sky, the multitude gathered, but in the midst of that vast, prostrate crowd, three men stood tall. The news reached Nebuchadnezzar. His fury was immense, having granted favor and position to these foreigners. Only to have them now challenge his supreme authority was an intolerable affront. The three friends were brought before the monarch. Nebuchadnezzar, trying to control his anger, offered them one last chance, a way out. The king's question was not just a threat, it was a direct challenge to their God. The response of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego was a testimony of faith that has resonated through the centuries. O Nebuchadnezzar, the first part of their response is crucial. We do not need to answer you. This was not a faith based on ransom. Nebuchadnezzar's anger, upon hearing this response, became uncontrollable. But what happened next defied all the laws of physics and human logic. Then the king, in amazement, said, Behold, I see 4 men loose, walking through the fire without harm. Nebuchadnezzar approached the mouth of the blazing fiery furnace and shouted, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, servants of the Most High God, come out and come here. The impact on Nebuchadnezzar was profound, from anger to amazement, and from amazement to worship. And the king issued a new decree, this time to honor the God of Israel. Therefore, I decree that every people, nation, or language that blasphemes against the God of Shadrach, Meshach. The story of the fiery furnace teaches us that true faith is not the absence of danger, but rather the trust in God's presence in the midst of danger. Years after his first dream, Nebuchadnezzar, at the height of his power and prosperity, had another dream that left him deeply troubled. He saw an enormous and majestic tree in the center of the earth, so tall that it reached the sky and was visible from all corners of the world. Its leaves were beautiful, its fruit abundant, and under its shade all the animals found refuge, while birds nested in its branches. But in the vision, a watcher, a holy one, descended from heaven and proclaimed with a loud voice, Cut down the tree and strip its branches, remove its leaves and scatter its fruit. Let the beasts that are under it flee, and the birds from its branches. But leave the stump of its roots in the ground, bound with iron and bronze, in the grass of the field. Let it be wet with the dew of heaven, and let its portion be with the beasts in the grass of the earth. Let his heart be changed from that of a man, and let a beast's heart be given to him, and let 7 times pass over him. This was the decree of the watchers, the judgment of the holy ones, so that all might know that the Most High rules over the kingdom of men, gives it to whomever he wills, and appoints the most humble of men over it. Once again, no wise man in Babylon could interpret the dream. The king, desperate, summoned Daniel again. Daniel, now known as Belteshazzar, was summoned before the king. Upon hearing the dream, Daniel was momentarily dismayed, understanding the terrible prophecy. With courage and respect, he said to the king, "O my lord, may the dream be for your enemies, and its meaning for your adversaries. The tree you saw, tall and strong, with its top reaching to heaven, is you, O king. You have grown and become strong. Your greatness has grown to the heavens, and your dominion to the ends of the earth." Daniel then revealed the meaning of the tree's destruction. And as for what the king saw, a watcher and a holy one coming down from heaven, saying, "Cut down the tree and destroy it, and leave the stump of its roots in the earth, bound with iron and bronze, in the grass of the field, that it may be wet with the dew of heaven, and with the beasts of the field may its portion be, until 7 times have passed over it. This is the interpretation, O king, a decree from the Most High that has come upon my lord the king. You shall be driven from men, and your dwelling place shall be with the beasts of the field, and you shall make grass like oxen, and you shall be wet with the dew of heaven. 7 times shall pass over you, until you realize that the Most High rules in the kingdom of men, and gives it to whomever he wills." But Daniel did not stop at the warning. With love and concern for the king who had elevated him, he gave him advice. "Therefore, O king, accept my advice. Repay your sins with justice and your iniquities with mercy. Perhaps thus your peace may be prolonged." Despite Daniel's clear warning and wise advice, Nebuchadnezzar's pride was too great. A year later, as he paced on the rooftop of his palace in majestic Babylon, contemplating the grandeur of the city he had built, the king arrogantly exclaimed, "Is not this great Babylon, which I have built for a royal palace by the might of my power and for the glory of my majesty?" He had barely finished speaking when a voice from heaven, the same one he had heard in his dream, pronounced the sentence, "It is said to you, King Nebuchadnezzar, the kingdom has been taken from you. You will be driven from among men, and your dwelling place will be with the beasts of the field, and you will be made to eat grass like oxen. 7 times will pass over you until you acknowledge that the Most High rules in the kingdom of men and gives it to whomever he chooses." At that very instant, the prophecy was fulfilled. Nebuchadnezzar was cast out from among men, his human mind was taken from him, and a beast's heart was given to him. He fed on grass like oxen. His body was wet with the dew of heaven. His hair grew like eagle's feathers and his nails like the talons of a bird. For 7 long times, he lived in a state of total madness, like a wild animal. The powerful king of Babylon had been humbled to the lowest depths. At the end of the 7 times, just as prophesied, Nebuchadnezzar's mind was restored. He, who had been reduced to an animal state, lifted his eyes to heaven, and in that moment of lucidity and humiliation, his pride was broken. He lifted his heart and eyes to the Most High God, and blessed, praised, and glorified him who lives forever. For his dominion is an everlasting dominion, and his kingdom is from generation to generation. All the inhabitants of the earth are considered as nothing, and he does according to his will in the host of heaven, and among the inhabitants of the earth. And no one can stay his hand or say to him, "What do you do?" In that moment of humble recognition, greatness and majesty were restored to him. His advisors and dignitaries sought him out, and he was reinstated on his royal throne with greater splendor than before. And King Nebuchadnezzar, who had once believed himself to be a god, concluded his testimony with these words, "Now I, Nebuchadnezzar, praise, exalt, and glorify the King of heaven, because all his works are true, and his ways are justice, and he is able to humble those who walk in pride." The story of Nebuchadnezzar is a powerful reminder that, no matter how high we rise, true sovereignty belongs only to God. He humbles the proud and exalts the humble. Hundreds of years after the fall of Jerusalem and the exile of its inhabitants, great Babylon remained a power, but its glory was beginning to fade. On the throne sat Belshazzar, the grandson of the great Nebuchadnezzar. One fateful night, King Belshazzar hosted a lavish banquet for 1,000 of his dignitaries, their wives, and their concubines. The throne room resounded with laughter, music, and the clinking of cups. But in the midst of drunkenness and excess, Belshazzar, driven by a combination of arrogance, and perhaps to impress his guests, gave an order that would seal his fate. He ordered the gold and silver vessels that his grandfather Nebuchadnezzar had taken from the temple in Jerusalem, the house of God. These sacred objects, dedicated to the worship of the Most High God, were brought so that the king and his nobles could drink wine from them. As they drank from these consecrated cups, they blasphemed and praised their pagan gods, gods of gold, silver, bronze, iron, wood, and stone. It was the height of sacrilege, a direct affront to the true God who had humiliated Nebuchadnezzar himself. At the climax of this profane feast, something extraordinary and terrifying happened. Suddenly, before the eyes of the king and all the guests, the fingers of a human hand appeared. These fingers began to write on the whitewashed wall of the royal palace, right in front of the lampstand. Terror seized King Bel. His face turned pale, his knees knocked together, and his legs trembled with fear. His heart was filled with terror. He shouted loudly for all the magicians, Chaldeans, and diviners of Babylon to be brought to him. He promised riches in the third place in the kingdom to anyone who could read the writing and give its interpretation. The king's wise men appeared, but none could read the mysterious words or tell the king their meaning. The confusion and panic in the hall increased. The king was more disturbed than ever, and his nobles were bewildered. In the midst of despair, the queen mother, Belshazzar's grandmother, entered the banquet hall. She, who had lived through Nebuchadnezzar's reign, remembered an exceptional man. Calmly and wisely, she said to the king, "O king, live forever. Let not your thoughts be troubled, nor let your countenance be altered. There is in your kingdom a man in whom dwells the spirit of the holy gods. In the days of your father, light, intelligence, and wisdom were found in him, like the wisdom of the gods. And King Nebuchadnezzar, your father, appointed him chief of the magicians, astrologers, Chaldeans, and diviners, because a superior spirit was found in him, and knowledge and understanding to interpret dreams, decipher riddles, and resolve doubts. This is Daniel. Now therefore, call Daniel, and he will give you the interpretation." It was the only hope. Daniel, now an old man, but still filled with the Spirit of God, was brought before the king. Belshazzar said to him, "Are you that Daniel, one of the captives of Judah, whom my father the king brought back from Judea? I have heard of you that the spirit of the gods is in you, and that in you are light, understanding, and exceeding wisdom. Now the wise men and astrologers have been brought before me to read this writing and give me its interpretation, but they have not been able to explain the meaning of the matter. But I have heard of you that you can give interpretations and solve riddles. If you can read this writing and give me its interpretation, you will be clothed in purple, and a chain of gold will be around your neck, and you will be the third ruler in the kingdom." Daniel, with the same integrity and courage that characterized him, responded to the king, "Your gifts be to yourself, and your rewards give to someone else. I will read the writing to the king and give him the interpretation." Daniel did not seek honors or riches from that corrupt king. His sole purpose was to serve God and proclaim his truth. Before giving the interpretation, Daniel reminded Belshazzar of the lesson his grandfather Nebuchadnezzar had learned. The hard lesson of humility and acknowledgement of God's sovereignty. He told him how God had given Nebuchadnezzar a kingdom in immense greatness, but how pride led him to be humbled until he acknowledged that the Most High holds dominion over the kingdom of men. Then Daniel addressed Belshazzar directly, without beating around the bush. "And you, Belshazzar his son, have not humbled your heart, knowing all this, but you have magnified yourself against the Lord of heaven, and have brought the vessels of his house before him. And you and your nobles, your wives and your concubines have drunk wine from them. Besides this, you have praised gods of silver and gold, bronze, iron, wood, and stone, which neither see nor hear nor know. And you have not honored the God in whose hand is your life, and whose are all your ways." After this harsh rebuke, Daniel revealed the meaning of the scripture meaning. God has numbered your kingdom and put an end to it. Your reign has been measured, and its time is ended. Tekel, you have been weighed in the balance and found wanting. You have been evaluated by God and fall short of the standard. A parson pairs. Your kingdom has been broken up and given to the Medes and Persians. Your empire will be divided and handed over to your enemies. The sentence had been pronounced. That same night, Belshazzar, king of the Chaldeans, was killed. While Belshazzar's feast raged within the seemingly impregnable walls of Babylon, the armies of Cyrus the Persian and Darius the Mede had diverted the Euphrates River, marching beneath the walls through the dry riverbed. The Babylonian Empire, once the head of gold, fell. The great city, the symbol of human power and arrogance, was conquered without a major battle, not by the might of an immense army in the open field, but by the silent hand of divine providence. The fall of Belshazzar in Babylon is an eternal warning. No matter how powerful we feel, there is a God above all. He is the one who establishes and removes kings, and those who profane the sacred and refuse to humble themselves before him will meet inevitable judgment. After the fall of Babylon, a new power rose, the Medo-Persian Empire. Darius the Mede took control and, in his wisdom, decided to reorganize his vast kingdom. He appointed 120 satraps to govern the provinces, and over them, he appointed 3 governors, one of whom was Daniel. The reason for Daniel's choice was clear. He possessed a superior spirit. Not only was he intelligent and capable, but his integrity was impeccable. Daniel stood out above the other satraps and governors, so much so that King Darius considered placing him over the entire kingdom. Daniel's administrative skill, his discernment, and his loyalty made him indispensable. This, however, ignited the flames of envy and jealousy in the hearts of the other governors and satraps. The jealousy of the other officials was corrosive. They wanted to get rid of Daniel, but they couldn't find any grounds for accusation. They watched him closely, looking for any error in his administration, any moral failing, any act of corruption. But Daniel was so upright that they found no fault or vice in him. In frustration, they realized something crucial. We will not find any cause against this Daniel unless we find it against him concerning the law of his God. They knew that Daniel's faith was his unshakable strength, so they devised a devious plan. They met with King Darius, flattering him and proposing a new decree. "O King Darius, live forever. All the governors of the kingdom, magistrates, satraps, counselors, and captains have agreed that you issue a royal edict that anyone who petitions any god or man within 30 days, except you, O king, shall be cast into the lion's den." The decree was a clever trap. For 30 days, the only divinity to whom prayer or appeal could be made was the king himself. The conspirators knew that Daniel, a man of deep prayer, would never stop worshiping his God, regardless of human law. Darius, perhaps blinded by flattery or the idea of consolidating his power, signed the edict, sealing it with his ring, which made it immutable according to the laws of the Medes and Persians. Daniel, a man of deep convictions, knew perfectly well that the edict had been signed. He knew the terrible consequences of disobeying it, but his loyalty to God was above any human law. When Daniel learned that the edict had been signed, he went home. His windows, in his upper room, were open toward Jerusalem. And just as he had always done, 3 times a day he knelt and prayed and gave thanks before his God, as he always did. He didn't hide. He didn't conceal himself. He didn't change his routine. His prayer wasn't a public defiance, but an act of personal obedience to a higher authority. The conspirators, who were spying on him, found him doing exactly what they expected. They rushed to the king and reminded him of the edict. "O king," they said, "did you not sign an edict that anyone who petitioned any god or man within 30 days except you, O king, would be cast into the den of lions?" The king replied, "The order is firm, according to the law of Media and Persia, and cannot be repealed." Then the accusers spoke the words that would seal, in their minds, Daniel's fate. "Who is of the children of the captivity of Judah, does not respect you, O king, nor does he obey the decree that you have signed, but 3 times a day he prays." King Darius, upon hearing this, was deeply distressed. He realized the trap. He did not want Daniel to die, for he esteemed him and recognized his innocence. He spent the whole day, until sunset, searching for a way to free Daniel. He strove to find a loophole in the law, or a way to save his faithful servant. But the implacable conspirators came before him again and said, "Know, O king, that it is the law of Media and Persia that no edict or decree that the king confirms may be changed." The king had no choice. With great regret, he gave the order. Daniel was brought and thrown into the lion's den. With a heavy heart, the king spoke to Daniel a phrase that revealed his own hope and a glimmer of faith in Daniel's God. "Whom you continually serve, deliver you." A stone was placed over the mouth of the den, and the king sealed it with his own signet ring, and with the signet ring of his nobles, so that there would be no change concerning Daniel. That night, King Darius returned to his palace, deeply saddened. He refused to eat, refused to allow musical instruments to be brought before him, and couldn't sleep. The image of Daniel in the den, and the betrayal of his own men, tormented him. The next day, at dawn, King Darius arose in great anxiety and hurried to the lion's den. When he arrived, he approached the den, and in a distressed voice called to Daniel, "Servant of the living God, has your God, whom you continually serve, been able to rescue you from the lions?" And from the depths of the den, the voice answered, clear and unharmed, "O king, live forever. My God sent his angel, who shut the lions' mouths, so that they could not harm me. For before him I was found innocent, and even before you, O king, I have done nothing deserving of punishment." The king's joy and relief were immense. He ordered Daniel to be taken from the den immediately. And when they brought him out, they saw that no harm had been found on him, because he had trusted in his God. The king's justice was swift and decisive. By his order, those men who had accused Daniel were brought and thrown into the lion's den, along with their sons and wives. And the lions seized them before they reached the bottom of the den, devouring them completely. Then King Darius wrote a decree to all peoples, nations, and languages living throughout the earth. "Peace be multiplied to you. This decree is issued from me, that throughout my kingdom, everyone should fear and tremble at the presence of the God of Daniel. For he is the living God and endures forever. And his kingdom will never be destroyed, and his dominion will endure to the end. He delivers and saves, and performs signs and wonders in heaven and on earth. He has delivered Daniel from the power of the lions." Thus Daniel prospered during the reign of Darius, and during the reign of Cyrus, the Persian. The story of the lion's den is not only a tale of survival, but a powerful reminder that faithfulness to God, even in the face of death, is always rewarded. God honors those who honor him, and his power is limitless. If you enjoyed this epic story of Daniel, we invite you to subscribe to our channel, Bible Space. By doing so, you're not only supporting us, but you're also ensuring you don't miss any of the fascinating stories we're preparing for you. Every week, we'll unearth more stories of faith, courage, and miracles. Turn on the bell so YouTube will notify you every time we upload a new video. Join our community and continue exploring the stories that have shaped human history.